Merlin versus eBird. They're both essential, but only when you know how to use them, so let's figure that out right now. The purpose of Merlin is really to help you identify birds, while for eBird it's more of list keeping and researching bird species. As far as user experience goes, Merlin is definitely going to be the more beginner friendly because it's more visual and just there isn't that much in Merlin as compared to eBird, which is much more complex because it's more built for listing birds and looking at historical data of birds. As far as main features go, Merlin has several, whether that's the photo ID, sound ID, where it identifies birds by sound, or their step-by-step ID, which can be very helpful for beginners. It asks you 5 questions, and then based on that, it gives you a whole list of birds, also based on your time and date and location, that whatever bird you saw could potentially be. And so that was super helpful for me when I first started birding, as I really didn't know very many of the birds in my backyard aside from like the very common ones like a robin or a chickadee or a titmouse. eBird, on the other hand, is more suited for checklist creation and life list tracking. Whether you're creating a checklist of all the birds you saw in a local park or on your vacation, eBird is great for that. And the Explore tab in eBird is also fantastic for researching birding hotspots for you to go to next, as well as where particular species can be found. As far as offline capability goes, Merlin is definitely going to win here because you can download bird packs and then it will give you a brief description of the bird and several pictures as well as the bird's range map for you to use kind of like an online field guide when you're out birding, so that way you don't have to lug around a big book. You can just download Merlin and have an instant field guide on your phone. As far as eBird goes, in order to use it offline, you'll have to download the eBird mobile app, which is pretty helpful for submitting checklists, makes it a lot easier, and does a lot of things for you, like it'll automatically keep track of the distance that you've traveled or how long you've been birding, and it makes it really easy to count birds and keep a tally of them as you bird. As far as scientific contributions go, eBird definitely wins here. For Merlin, there really isn't a whole lot. If you see a bird, you can log it in Merlin, but with eBird you can submit a whole checklist of birds, which is much more beneficial for science. And also, eBird will keep track of date and time and what habitat you're in and things like that, which makes it a lot more valuable for scientific contributions. Merlin is ideal for you if you are a new birder and are learning Bird ID, or even an experienced birder who just wants to brush up on their skills. Again, their Sound ID feature is super helpful as it will identify bird song as it hears it. eBird, on the other hand, is for birders who can already identify birds, and also for birders who want to keep track of the birds that they've seen in a meaningful and easy way. Another nice thing about eBird is you can create a lot of lists, whether that's a year list or your life list, which is all the birds that you've seen in your life. eBird makes it a lot easier than Merlin to be able to see that. While Merlin does have a life list function, I prefer eBird's just because you can see a lot more data based on your submissions. So here is some examples of when to use eBird or when Merlin would be a better choice. So for an example of when to use Merlin, let's say you see an unfamiliar bird on a hike and you snap a photo and use Merlin's photo ID to identify it. Or maybe you hear a song of a bird that you didn't recognize. You can open up Merlin's Sound ID feature and then it will suggest likely species. If you're planning a trip to a new area, you could use Merlin's Explore Birds function to see what bird species are common. It'll give you a little bar chart that will show you how common that bird is. eBird can also be a great way to plan a trip, especially if you want to find specific hotspots to find birds, but if you're looking for more of a general picture of the area, Merlin is definitely the way to go. Here's some examples of when eBird would be a better option. So let's say you want to keep a checklist of all the birds that you see during a morning walk. eBird is definitely the way to go for that. I would recommend you download the eBird mobile app, as it makes submitting checklists a lot easier. In Merlin, you would have to do it one bird at a time, while in eBird you can log all the birds that you've seen in one specific place. Another example would be maybe you're at a known birding hotspot and you want to share your sightings with other birders. You can create a complete checklist in eBird and then share it with other birders, and that can be a great way to share what birds you're seeing with others. Also, eBird's life list and year list function, like I mentioned, is a lot better than Merlin. In Merlin, you're not able to see a year list, it's just your life list, but eBird's built-in list features in the My eBird section are very helpful, and you can split it by different regions versus Merlin where it's just the whole world. Another good example of when to use eBird would be if you're trying to explore specific hotspots. While Merlin can give you a general idea of what birds are found in an area, eBird narrows it down to different hotspots, and you can actually see checklists submitted from other birders. Now for some examples of when to use both of them together. Let's say you hear an unknown bird song, and so you identify it with Merlin, and then you confirm that it is in fact that species. And so then you would add that species to your eBird checklist. I use both eBird and Merlin whenever I'm out birding, as they are some of the best birding tools. And I put together a full guide on how to take full advantage of both eBird and Merlin, and to make sure you're not missing out on anything in eBird or Merlin, check it out right here. If you are serious about taking your birding to the next level, you definitely don't want to miss it, so make sure you check it out right here.